So the California High-Speed Rail program is dedicated grade-separated high-speed rail infrastructure, phase one of which will go from San Francisco to the Los Angeles-Anaheim area. That's 520 miles of high-speed rail. This is going to move people at speeds of up to 220 miles an hour. 250 miles an hour is our design speed, but we should operate around 220 miles an hour, and that will get people from San Francisco to LA in under 3 hours, which is absolutely transformative when it comes to how people move around the space, right? That is competitive with your air travel, and that absolutely puts automobile travel in the realm of the dinosaur, really. High-speed rail will operate on 100% renewable energy. It'll be, of course, electrified rail, and will become the backbone of electrified transportation in the state of California. It's also tying key population centers of the Central Valley to the coastal cities, which means that we have access and mobility in a way that's never happened before in the state in terms of travel times, right? High-speed rail will shrink the state, essentially, which allows people greater economic opportunities in the Central Valley that they haven't had before. So within the project, I manage the sustainability program for the authority. The California High-Speed Rail Authority is the entity that is a state of California agency delivering the program. And we work in partnership with the authority to deliver the system. So as the sustainability manager, I oversee a couple of broad areas. Our renewable energy goal, looking at sustainable infrastructure, looking at and working with the planning team on how we're integrating the stations into our communities, and then as well looking at business and management practices and our respect for the natural world and the mitigation we'll be doing around that space. So all of this aggregates under the topic of sustainability. In particular, my team focuses on greenhouse gas emissions forecasting, as well as inventorying greenhouse gas emissions throughout the program, the whole life of the program, to understand where we should really be focusing our efforts in order to achieve a noticeable difference in how the project is delivered. One key objective is, of course, to transform how Californians move around the state, right? By moving people out of automobiles and out of airplanes and onto electrified high-speed rail run on renewable energy, we're going to start moving the needle in terms of transportation emissions in the state of California, reducing vehicle miles traveled and shifting air travel as well. So that's, I'd say the primary objective is delivering an amazing transportation good for the state of California. But around sustainability, we're also, one key objective is 100% renewable energy in operation. We think that's a really important element of how we're electrifying sort of the fuel for transportation in the state of California. And the high-speed rail system is really the backbone for electric transportation in the state of California, connected to other rail and transit systems, as well as, of course, the vehicle grid. In addition, we have a goal to achieve carbon neutral construction, right? We understand that in order to build the system, we're going to be a 520-mile system to start. We're going to have a lot of construction activity, and that is an opportunity really to start innovating in that space and achieving a big difference in terms of emissions. So that goal means we start looking very closely at the vehicles we use on site. We've committed to offsetting not just the GHG emissions, but also the air quality emissions on site. And those are some pretty key criteria when it comes to the system and infrastructure. Our buildings, our facilities, our maintenance facilities, and our stations, you know, the place where we really interface a lot with the community and with our workers, are going to be zero net energy facilities. This is in line where California's energy efficiency is headed, as well as certified using the LEED assessment methodology, and we're setting a goal of LEED Platinum for those facilities. Respecting that we would be delivering a $64 billion project over the course of about 15 years, we recognized that working very closely with our contracts and procurement is where we would need to make a key difference in terms of what's happening on site. So We've required the contractor to recycle all of the concrete and steel from both demolition as well as construction. We've required them to recycle at least 75% of everything else that isn't a hazardous material. We've also required the contractor to bring to site the cleanest available equipment, Tier 4 off-road equipment, and to have a fleet mix of, it's a sort of goal that trends ever better, right? We started out with 2010 as kind of our average fleet age, and now we'll be moving towards a more cleaner fleet age after that, including the use of electric light-duty vehicles. We've also required the contractor to obtain from their suppliers environmental product declarations. EPDs are third-party verified assessments of what has gone into a material, and we find it important to start understanding the whole life impact of the materials that are going into the system so that we understand our supply chain a bit better and we can start motivating better behavior in that space and throughout our supply chain. So we've required our contractor to obtain EPDs for concrete and steel products, and that's because we're mostly working in the civil infrastructure space right now. But as we move into other procurements, including for the rolling stock and the communications and systems, we'll be looking at EPD requirements specifically for those products and for those key areas. I think we all know that if you require it as part of the contract with your shall language, then that is the key mechanism for making something happen on a construction site. California has a lot of regulation, a lot of policy, a lot of legislation, which kind of sets our overall targets and objectives, but it's really the implementation mechanism is our contract with our contractors. We also, use the opportunity to do workshops and engagements with small businesses. It's a very important part of the program, right? Dedicating 30% of the contracts to small businesses, because those are certainly engines for job growth, which is one of the key objectives for, building the system. So through that mechanism, we do a lot of workshops to help small businesses to become certified in the state of California. And then we also do on-site training with the contractor to discuss sustainability and sustainability objectives. But the key thing is the contract. So we have looked at the rich smorgasbord of sustainability assessment methodologies, and this is really an evolving space when it comes to civil infrastructure. It's pretty easy for our buildings, right? We look to LEED to use as a standard for evaluating its performance. We've also looked at other assessment methods like the Living Building Challenge and sustainable sites to understand where we could maybe take a leadership position in some areas. But we've also looked at the Green Roads Assessment Method, the FHWA Invest Method. Those are a little bit, they're a little bit more tailored to a roadway. So we've looked at the Envision Assessment Method as a way of kind of taking that third-party look at all of the promises and commitments that we've made and making sure we have that dedicated piece of proof that we've actually done what we said we would do. We've also looked at ISCA, the rating system out of Australia, and of course we've looked at SQL from the UK as well. I think it's important to have a pretty basic grounding in, carbon emissions and sustainability as a concept. I think a good grounding in the supply chain and the economics of how we obtain our materials and how we use them. I think it's quite key to actually have a good understanding of how construction sites operate, how contractors think, how suppliers think, and how vehicle manufacturers think, right? Where are they evolving their space? Where can they go? What is happening in that realm? And anticipate what's happening there so that you can actually set good objectives, right? We're looking to a 15-year construction horizon, so it's good to know where the industries are moving. I think sustainability professionals can come out of a lot of different spaces. I have a degree in urban and regional planning, which I think means that you're used to thinking about a lot of different areas, which is, I think, important when you're dealing with sustainability, because there's a lot that falls under that umbrella. It's always very specific to the context that you're working in. So it's very important to understand what the goals and priorities are of your local municipality, your project, or your region, and tying what you do in terms of sustainability to those local priorities.